Braille is a tactile writing system for the visually impaired, using raised dots in various configurations to distinguish different characters. Not surprisingly, Braille is named after its creator, Frenchman Louis Braille, but what you might not know is what inspired it. Louis wasn't born blind. His father ran a shop making and repairing horse harnesses. At age 3, young Louis was playing with one of his father's pointed tools, used to pierce holes in the leather, when he accidentally stabbed himself in the eye. An infection soon spread to both of his eyes, and by age 5, Louis was completely blind. Despite the fact that the early 19th century was not arranged to accommodate the disabled, Braille nonetheless excelled in his education and soon began studying at France's Royal Institute for Blind Youth, one of the world's very first schools for blind children. The school's founder had books made for his students by embossing paper with the raised imprints of Latin letters that the children could trace with their fingers. But while it allowed students like Braille to read, albeit profoundly slowly, what it didn't permit was the ability to write. To do that, Braille had each letter of the alphabet cut out of thick leather that he then traced out, generating correspondence with his family back home. It was, for obvious reasons, a long and cumbersome process. When he was just 12, Braille chanced upon something that would change his life and the lives of sightless people for centuries to come: a cryptography system created for Napoleon's soldiers. But this wasn't just any cryptography system. It was designed so that soldiers could send and receive battlefield communications in the dark of night when light was impossible or too dangerous to employ. The system utilized a series of 12 raised dots, and while it was effective for simple communication, it was also quite crude. There's no distinction between capital and lowercase letters, and it lacked both punctuation and numbers. But Braille recognized its massive potential. He took the idea and ran with it. By just 15, he'd simplified his system to just 6 dots and assigned different combinations, 64 in total, for different letters, capitalization, punctuation marks, and numbers. He spent much of his free time creating texts with, ironically, a pointed awl nearly identical to the one that blinded him when he was a toddler. With the tip of just a single index finger, the world of literature, news, and even musical notation was now opened to blind readers. Later, Braille expanded on his invention. He devised a kit which allowed blind people to write letters to each other, and another that translated the pattern of dots into letters for sighted readers. Braille's teachers were so impressed by him that after his graduation, he was invited to stay at the school as an instructor himself. For much of the rest of his life, he taught history and mathematics there. He later became an accomplished writer and musician, playing both the organ and the cello. Ironically, however, the school never implemented Braille's system. In fact, they were hostile to it, thinking that it would cost sighted teachers their jobs if the blind could suddenly read and study without their help. Luckily, despite their short-sighted roadblocks, Braille was far too beneficial to be repressed, and more than 2 centuries later, it is used throughout the globe and remains virtually unchanged. Special thanks to Tom Eiling for inspiring this post, and if you're not already following him, what is the matter with you? Stay curious, my friends.